Hello and welcome to Louise Singleton Creations. In today's video I will be trying out the Resin Fast Curing Machine from Into Resin. I've seen a few people use these on YouTube and I was kind of concerned that by shortening the curing time you could compromise the effects that happen in the resin, because we all know the magical things that happen with the resin when you walk away and you come back and it's completely transformed. So yeah, I was concerned that by shortening the time you will change the finished effect. So I will be doing some tests today with resin in the machine and out of the machine to see if there's any difference. Right then, on receiving my fast resin curing machine, my first impressions were it's very smart looking. I like the green and gold look, it's quite classy. It also has 5 trays, so if you're going to be curing lots and lots of things, you can stack them all on top of each other and it's a great space saver, as well as the fact that it's going to speed up the curing time. So that was another thing that I was quite impressed by. When I looked at the instructions, I saw that if you turn each tray round 180 degrees, it goes to a different level, so you've got a higher space for curing. So that's a really useful feature. And also, of course, if you're not curing lots of things, you don't have to use all of the trays, you could just use 1 or 2. Now, each tray has a hole in the middle, which I'm presuming is to make sure that you've got even heat distribution and you can't block any of the trays, so that if you've got lots of them stacked up, if the whole surface area was covered in moulds, I don't think the heat would circulate very well. So I think that's why it has the hole in the middle. And it also has a ridge around the hole, which I'm guessing is there to stop you from laying things over it and blocking it. But it's a bit of a pain. I've got to say, I wish it wasn't there, because it really reduces the space you have for your moulds. I went through all of my moulds to see what I had that would actually fit in this. And yeah, I didn't have that many really, because I do tend to make larger items. But yeah, I found a few things, and luckily I found some things with duplicates as well, so that I could do the same thing in the machine and out of the machine. And here's 2 of those ones, and they're the little teardrop shapes, and I'm going to leave one of them clear in each of the moulds so that I can test the finished pieces to see if there's any more bubbles in the one that was cured quickly, because I'm thinking if you're curing something faster, there's less time for the bubbles to escape by themselves. I will also be going back to those teardrops and filling 2 of them with alcohol ink to test the Petri effect in there, to see if shortening the time will change the effect with the Petri method. So here I'm filling 3 silicone cups with transparent resin from Resin Pro, and then I'm going to add my pigments, which are the Sahara pigments, also from Resin Pro. I've got teal, a pale copper and the interference gold. I'm going to use these 3 colours for everything today. I'm just going to keep on filling up moulds until it's all gone. Okay, onto my bookmarks. I've put 1 into a tray and I'm leaving 1 out of the tray. It's best to apply your resin to the mould when it's actually in the tray, because if you try picking it up, it's all going to spill out if you've already got the resin in there. So you need to pour it in situ. So I'm trying to pour them both exactly the same, and the reason for this one is to have the 3 colours and see if there's any difference in the way that they blend together, with the one out of the machine and the one in the machine. So that's all I'm doing there, doing them both exactly the same. So those were my comparison pieces. I will get back to those teardrops in a moment. But for the rest, all I'm doing is filling up all the moulds that I could find, popping them all in there. And yeah, this one is the one I made in another video. You might have seen it. It's a bead mould for making a necklace, and it's one I devised myself with the nylon cord going through to form a hole through the top of each bead. I do like that mould, and I haven't used it for ages, so it gave me the opportunity. Next up was a small bangle mould that I found, which will be to make a bangle for my granddaughter because it's absolutely tiny. I don't believe any adult would actually manage to get that on. When it arrived, I remember when I bought that mould, I thought, what on earth is going on here? Why is it so small? Nobody's got wrists or hands small enough to wear that. Anyway, my granddaughter does, so it's great for kids. And I wanted to try using paper in it, so I took some double-sided paper, and because I was just working really quickly, I didn't think this one through very much, because as you can see, where it's joined, I can't get it to, go smoothly into shape like the rest of the circle. And yeah, I should have thought that one through a little bit better and thought of a way so that that join bit didn't stick out the way it does. But anyway, it's all just for an experiment, isn't it? Next, I just poured loads of resin into loads of bead moulds just to try and use it up. These bead moulds are actually really good. I use them quite a lot. When I've got a little bit of resin left at the end of a project, they're really useful. And they're useful for this experiment because they're small and they will fit in. That's the only reason I'm making the beads. So at this stage I ran out of tiny moulds and I decided to just pour the rest into a coaster mould. So it's not really very useful for the experiment, but this coaster turned out really beautiful, and it led me on to making a different video using the same technique. So I was glad I did this just to use up the leftover resin. So stay tuned to see this one come out of the mould because it was really, really good. And the last job was to fill those 2 teardrops with inks for the Petri effect to see if the fast curing would make any difference. So I'm just covering the surface with some drops of alcohol ink. These are from Let's Resin. And then I will just add the sinking white over the top. I'm keeping it very simple. I'm not doing loads and loads of layers or anything like that. I'm just doing it all the same. As long as each one had the same amount of drops, I wasn't too bothered about what the finished result would be like. I just wanted to know if they were the same or not. So once I'd finished all of the different bits, I put them into the machine and switched it on. I didn't set the timer, I just put it into the machine and pressed on, and that was it. And yeah, it was quite noisy. It's 3 hours later, and these are my test pieces. Well, these 2 are my test pieces. And let's have a look. Do you see? Nowhere near. Nowhere near. That's after 3 hours. So we'll look at this one. Sorry, I'm holding the camera and looking at this at the same time. Do you see? Oh, it's hard to show you. Yeah, there. Nowhere near. Okay, so I've just turned this off. And these ones, I wish I had 3 hands sometimes. Can you hear it? It's kind of, I think it's like 99% there. I'm not sure I would want to try demoulding them yet. But anyway, let's go to the ones that are the same as what I just showed you. So these are the ones that I've just, hang on, take that off there. Okay, so these are the ones that have been in the curing machine. Yeah, pretty much there. Yeah, okay. I'm going to have to put my phone on the tripod to demould these. I think what I'll do is I'll wait until everything's ready and demould everything together. But as you can see, after 3 hours, let me think, 2:30. 3 hours. It was 2:30 and it's now 5:30 and I can't count. So 3 hours later, that's done. Just about, like I said, 99% done. And that one will these ones will probably need at least another 3 hours. So yeah, 50% quicker. So that's a good sign. Okay then, so after another 3 hours, the pieces that were not in the machine were ready to come out of the moulds. And even though this coaster wasn't really part of the experiment because it wouldn't fit in the machine, I wanted to show you it because I really loved the finished result. Let's have a look. There we go. Look at the pattern. Look at the patterns on there. Isn't that good? I loved that. That was so different. So yeah, that did spur me on to do another video using that coaster mould. So watch out for that one coming up. And let's get on with the comparisons. Okay, onto the test pieces. The bookmark on the right was in the curing machine and the left wasn't. And the only difference really is the speed in which it cured. The one on the right cured in 3 hours, the one on the left was 6 hours. But look at the way the colours look exactly the same. It didn't have any effect on the blending of the colours. In fact, they didn't actually blend much at all for either of them. But yeah, they're both exactly the same. No difference there. So that's a thumbs up. Okay, on to my Petri effect teardrops. Now, these ones were not in the curing machine. And as you can see, they didn't turn out amazingly. My colour choices weren't brilliant. But try to focus on what's actually happened with how much the white has sunk. And keep it in your mind because in a moment I will show you the ones from the curing machine. Okay, so those are the ones that were not in the machine. Let's have a look. Now then, this is quite interesting. These are the ones that were in the machine. The white has dropped down probably just about the same amount in just the same way as they did in the other ones. But look at the colour of my inks in this one. They're not as muddy. And I'm thinking that perhaps if they cure quicker, the inks have less time to mingle together and the colours stay crisper. And I wasn't expecting that at all. Right, onto the clear ones. This one was in the curing machine. Now, I must say at this moment that I didn't use a torch on either of them. I just poured them and left them. So there are bubbles in both of them, and that's nothing to do with the quality of the resin. It's just because I didn't want to use a torch. I wanted to see how the bubbles would be. And so the one on the right, I'll say it again. The one on the right was in the curing machine. The one on the left wasn't. They both have bubbles, but I don't know if you can tell. The one that was in the curing machine, the bubbles look larger, whereas the ones on the left are a lot smaller, but that's the only difference. Right then, so I'm going to just demould everything else whilst I share my conclusion with you. What did I think? Well, There are positives and negatives, and through watching the process, you probably already know what they are. Let's start with the positives. It's always good to start with the positives. The curing time was halved, and that's got to be good, hasn't it? It does indeed speed up the curing process. Another positive is the fact that there are 5 trays, and if you make a lot of small items, you can do loads and loads of pieces all at once and have them out of the way, not taking up all the space on your table. So that's another bonus. Another positive is that halving the curing time did not alter the special effects that I was going for. Everything just seemed to be exactly the same, apart from the Petri effect, where in fact it seemed to be a positive because the inks didn't have as long to mingle together and to get a muddy effect. So I would say that's another positive. Right, what didn't I like? Well, I didn't like the lack of space in there. The fact that it's got that hole in the middle really does stop you from putting a lot of your larger moulds in there, and that was really disappointing. I wanted to use individual coaster moulds in it and they just wouldn't fit. So yeah, that's my negative really. Oh, and also the noise. It was very loud when it was, when it was switched on. It's all right if you're going to leave the room, but if you're staying in there, it would be quite annoying after a while. Okay, so that's everything, and we've come to the end of the video. I hope it was useful to you if you've been thinking about whether or not to purchase a resin curing machine, because yeah, they do work. It's definitely worth getting one, especially if you only work with small pieces. I will put a link in the description for the resin curing machine, along with my links for the materials I've used today from Resin Pro and a discount code. And I will see you again next time. Bye for now.